Howdy, I'm Jammer. And, as you can clearly see by this t-shirt, I'm really excited today because today's video is going to be all about Green Lantern. I really shouldn't try to be funny. Anyway, yes, I wore green with my Swamp Thing on it, which we'll get to at some point in the future. I promise, I promise, I promise. But today, we're going to start the very first of hopefully a really big ongoing series on this channel, which will be me talking about Green Lantern comics. And today, we're going to start off with the New 52 Volume 1 run of Green Lantern, and for the record, just Green Lantern, because, well, I'll talk about this in a second, but Volume 1, Sinestro, by Geoff Johns and Doug Monkey. And I'm positive I completely butchered Doug's last name. I apologize if any friends of Doug's ever see this. Please apologize to him and tell him I absolutely adore his art. Anyway, Green Lantern is a character, fun fact, I never really cared about growing up. I was very basic bro. I used to watch the Super Friends growing up. I'm that old. And I remember Batman, I remember Wonder Woman, I remember the Wonder Twins, Wonder Twin powers activate. They had a little blue monkey sidekick, I can't remember his name. And Batman and Robin were there. And even Apache Chief, does anybody remember him? My God, that was really racist. Yeah. Anyway, I don't really remember Green Lantern from the show. I'm positive he was on it at some point, but I just don't really remember him. Or if he was there, I never really paid attention to him. Then I watched Batman the Animated Series, and I watched Superman the Animated Series. And then by the time the Justice League show started off, I started distancing myself away from comic books and superheroes and stuff like that for a whole host of reasons that really isn't that important. But for whatever the case, Green Lantern has existed outside of my world. And in fact, it's only been until recently, and I have no idea why, that I've taken a keen interest in the character of Green Lantern. There's something about his universe, it's an interesting aspect of the way his universe operates. There's just, I don't know, there's something really interesting there, and I would like to try to start digging into his books, talking about how his comics have typically worked in the past, and then something really important must need to be said immediately before we move forward. As always, these videos are not about talking about, this is the history of Green Lantern. This is the history of his role in comics. I'm not that kind of YouTuber. I'm not the kind of comics fan. There are people out there who have done that. If I can find any good videos or just any sources about him, honestly, I'll probably just post the Wikipedia page to Green Lantern in the comment section, or excuse me, the description section below. Check it out, because I stand behind Wikipedia as a good resource. But anyway, if you're interested in the history of Green Lantern and the history of his publication runs, there are other sources to go to. For my part, I know what I can do, and what I can do is talk about how Green Lantern books work in terms of the medium of comics, how it operates, and how these books are really either doing a good job, a bad job, a poor job, what have you. And as you can see behind me, especially as of late, I've just been inhaling Green Lantern books. Now, honestly, fun fact, there's a fair amount of the stack I haven't actually gotten to yet. But, nevertheless, this is the fun of hopping into this universe, which I've been aware of for years, and only now really getting into. So, again, this will be the first of many videos about Green Lantern comics, Green Lantern universe, and just the Lantern universe too. So I hope this is exciting and fun for you, because I know most of the books that I covered so far haven't really been a lot of superhero books, and I've been trying to make sure that I pick some books that are worth the reader's time, and I'm really excited to get into this book. So, enough bias, enough precursors and caveats. Let's just hop into this book. Alright, so let's hop into the book. But actually, let's do a little bit of intro first. So, if you're not familiar with the New 52, it was a major event in the DC publication line. And events have a lot of different aspects to them. A lot of times they're storylines. But then also, sometimes it can just be a new means of publication. Basically, what happened is DC essentially reset everything in their universe. So, Action Comics went to Action Comics #1. Batman went to Batman #1. Justice League went to Justice League #1. And this is kind of big because some comic lines had been going for hundreds of issues at this point. Like, you could get all the way through Action Comics 516 if you wanted to. I know some nerd immediately is going to go out there and go, "Excuse me, sir, there was not an Action Comics 516. Okay, I know. There probably wasn't. But this is just to understand the idea that when we talk about the new 52, this is more or less a reset. And each book was different in terms of its continuity. Green Lantern was unique in the fact that it didn't necessarily reset the entire universe. It didn't retcon anything. It just basically started a completely new storyline. And this is important to understand because the way Green Lantern Volume 1 operates is we open up with, well, every Green Lantern fan will probably be able to read this passage with me. "In blackest day, in blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power, Green Lantern's light." That's cool. Anyway, but what's unique about this particular introduction to the book is we see, also, by the way, I goofed it up. It's actually "in brightest day, in blackest night." Anyway, we see the delivery of those lines in 4 panels, but you'll note the hand as well as the face that's delivering these lines. Traditional readers will go, "Wait, that's not like a white person's hand. That's pink with like violet nails. What is this?" And then it pans up into this 1-page spread, and so we see the classic antagonist, Sinestro. Now, if you don't know anything about the Green Lantern comic books, like I kind of did, Sinestro is kind of like the classic bad guy of the Green Lantern universe. He's just the character, he's kind of the Joker to Batman, but not that same relationship dynamic. It's kind of like the way Lex Luthor is the classical archetypal villain to Superman. He's just this character who has traditionally been used over and over and over again. And actually in the stack behind me, he actually got his own line of comics very briefly in the New 52. He also got a 0 issue when they briefly did that Villains episode during the whole Forever Evil event, but that's its own story. But what's important here is Volume 1 actually doesn't focus on the traditional main protagonist of Green Lantern, Hal Jordan. Volume 1 begins, for the most part, with Sinestro being reintroduced into the Green Lantern Corps by the original Guardians. These are the makers of the Green Lanterns, the Green Lantern rings, as well as several other types of lanterns throughout the universe, and these individuals are the ones who predominantly try to bring order and maintain peace across the universe. The general idea is that Hal Jordan has been stripped of his ring by the Guardians, has been sent back to Earth, and now Sinestro has been put to the task of being a Green Lantern again and restoring order. And one of the first assignments he has put to task on is going back to his home planet of Korugar. Make sure I got that. Yeah, Korugar. Now, what's happened is, in previous involvements of the Green Lantern, Sinestro has formed the Yellow Lanterns. And if you don't know anything about Green Lantern, again, the way it operates is each ring has a different aspect of it, usually associated with the emotional spectrum. Green is the color of willpower, yellow is the color of fear. Sinestro created the Yellow Lantern Corps and then left them on his home planet of Korugar to help his home planet. He eventually discovers, however, that the Yellow Lantern Corps has entirely enslaved his home world. The rest of the book, then, is Sinestro going back to planet Earth, offering Hal Jordan a chance to become a Green Lantern again, and then basically working together to free the people of Korugar. That is basically what the book is about. Now, another aspect of this book that's really important to recognize is that I'm referring to this as a graphic novel. But when it comes to superhero comics, we have to understand the format is a little loose. So, in the back of this book, you'll observe the reader gets a couple of nice little extras. They get some character sketches of various scenes throughout the book, some panel layouts and sequences. But then you'll also usually, in a lot of these DC books, and sometimes Marvel books as well, sometimes with Marvel books, you get variant covers. And one of those, interestingly enough, is a variant cover of issue number 1 done by Greg Capullo, who did Batman number 1 with Scott Snyder. Fun fact, my hometown comic book shop, Ground Zero Comics, recently opened their doors again, and I decided to peruse the single issues. I picked up Green Lantern number 20, which is part of the big epic that starts from this book, and I might have treated myself a little bit to the Greg Capullo run. Anyway, this I show off not just to brag. Okay, I'm bragging a little bit. I'm really proud of this because I love Greg Capullo's artwork. But this is also really important to recognize because this issue and this issue bring to light the fact that we refer to this trade as a graphic novel when in fact all it really is a collection of individual comic books into a group. This is really important when we talk about superhero comics because 90% of the time, they're not single works. It's not something like, say, Bloom, where the book is self-contained, it's just this book, it didn't come out in individual issues, it's just out as a single book. Green Lantern, New 52, Volume 1, Sinestro, is a collection of the first 6 issues of the Green Lantern run. So when you're reading books like this, it's important to remember again that you're not necessarily always reading a contained story. You're reading part of a continual ongoing series. So even though this story may end really with issue 5, issue 6 more or less just sets up the struggle that will be in volume 2 of this run, we have to understand that this is not a complete end story. This is just part of a larger whole. That's really important because it really will impact how the reader will interact with this book, as well as how they'll interact with other superhero titles throughout the run. But okay, that's a little bit about the Green Lantern universe, but I also wanted to get back to something really important, because it's going to play a really important role later on in this book. Geoff Johns, the writer, is somebody you might have heard of, because he's a really big name in DC. And speaking of Green Lantern, a previous work of his, Blackest Night, is really important, not solely just to the Green Lantern universe, but also to this book as well. It's the same author, just at a different time period. The Blackest Night series came out, I believe, in the late 1990s, and this was a major event in the Green Lantern universe, in the DC universe, and just in comics, period. It's one of DC's most successful runs ever, and it impacted just virtually every character, because at one point, like, Lex Luthor gets a ring, and Batman gets a ring, and what have you. What's important here is when we're talking about rings, again, we're talking about different emotional spectrums. R is for rage, orange is for avarice, yellow is for fear, green is for will, hope is for blue, compassion is indigo, love is pink, and then black is death. These lights are really important as you move forward in Green Lantern books. So if you've never read a Green Lantern book before, it's important that Sinestro has gone from moving from a Yellow Lantern to a Green Lantern unwillingly, but nevertheless he's made that switch. And then also the fact that willpower is being used to fight fear. Seems kind of kitschy from afar, but this is how the universe operates. And so if you can't get past that fact, there's really not much more for you here. For myself, I think it's really cool, and now I really want to talk about why and how this book really works for the reader. Okay. Geoff Johns, Blackest Night, green equals will, yellow equals fear, superheroes. Okay, we got all that done. Let's get to the fun part. How does this book operate? Really, not that much to it. That's not a bad thing. I mean, it really needs to be said that for all my conversations on here about panel layouts, what have you, sometimes when we're talking about superhero comics, for the most part, I'm reading the series not always to get a high artistic statement, but just to follow characters. The word melodrama is a term that's sometimes used in genre studies in literature, and sometimes it has kind of like a pejorative tone to it because soap operas tend to be melodramas. We watch so-and-so who is a high banker, his wife is having an affair, there's evil twins, there's mad scientists, people get shot, people die, people come back to life. It's ridiculous. Until people start wearing capes and wearing magic rings and go across the universe and have fights. Superhero comic books tend to be melodramas. And again, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. Like all things in life, it's how you sell something, or it's how you present the story that ultimately wins over your reader and your viewer. And Geoff Johns, as I noted before, has been writing Green Lantern books for decades. It's so clear and so obvious how much he loves this character, these characters, this universe. And so what's fun about this book is you're essentially watching a fan tell an amazing story. So in terms of just the actual content of this book, we watch Sinestro fight against the Yellow Lanterns, who has betrayed his original intent. He watches as the people of Kuragar look upon him with distrust, and ultimately, in a lot of instances, hate and reject him. Sorry, I'm trying to find... Yes. Well, this panel may not explain all of it, but nevertheless, we get lots of small interactions where we can see that Sinestro isn't liked by Hal Jordan, he's not really liked by the Guardians, he isn't even liked by the people of Kuragar. So there's an interesting, just character study of Sinestro in this book, and so that's one of the reasons why I like it. We get to see a character who's so often kind of like a cartoon villain become kind of just, well, if not likable, then at least far more interesting sometimes than he has been in the past. So just this line right here, when Hal is like, "Don't think you're better than me," and his response is, "Ha ha ha ha, Hal Jordan, I am better than you." It's just, he's such a jerk, and I love it. But stylistically, what's really interesting about this book is there's not a lot of, how you say, dramatic creative choices in terms of layouts and experimentation with the form, but I think it would be a mistake to say that there's no experimentation. A lot of times, let me mark this page again because I am going to come back to it. A lot of times the way this book works is it works melodramatically. The panels are designed to lead the reader towards a feeling of, "Ooh, I think I know what's going to happen next. I think I know what's going to happen next," and then there's a reveal of it. So a typical structure found within this book is like the very first page, where we get the typical mantra of the Green Lanterns before the reader then turns the page, and we get Sinestro surrounded or flanked by the Guardians, in chains, holding a Green Lantern ring, or excuse me, wearing a Green Lantern ring next to a Green Lantern. It's a reveal, and reveals are typically a structure that sometimes are really dependent upon a reader's understanding of the plot. If you've ever read the graphic novel Bone, Geoff Smith does a really interesting job with what's known as the turn of the page. You turn the page, and you get a brand new image that just makes you pause and go, whoa. And there's countless examples of that throughout the book. For example, earlier again, when I had Sinestro looking at his home planet of Kuragar, observing the Yellow Lanterns, you'll see he's done what's known as a construct. That's whenever somebody uses the power of the ring to create some kind of three-dimensional form, structure, what have you. He creates more or less like a gigantic telescope to look on his home planet, and we see panel layouts. The whole thing is one single shot of empty space on the planet, and then we have several smaller panels in which we're able to kind of observe Sinestro and observe what he's observing, which is the Yellow Lanterns enslaving his home planet. This is a nice... can't talk. This is a nice page, stylistically speaking, but really, this structure is designed for the page turn, because once Sinestro discovers the Yellow Lanterns have enslaved his people, we see him kind of go, "Eh?" Which I always love that reaction, because in real life I never go, "Eh?" I go, "What?" Or, "Que?" Because I live in Texas, and so they taught me Spanish in high school. Anyway, shouldn't be funny. he says, eh, and then the next page, one of the Yellow Lanterns dramatically attacks him, shattering his construct, and we get a cool space battle in which Sinestro kills the Yellow Lantern and then shatters his ring in space. So again, it's ultimately the turn of the page where most of the energy of this book tends to happen, and particularly in one-panel spreads. A later passage in the book, we find Sinestro imprisoned with other citizens of Kuragar, and he makes a bunch of Green Lantern rings for all of the individual citizens to use against the Yellow Lanterns. We see here, again, there's a massive fight. The people are like, you betrayed us, Sinestro. You left us in the process. You left us with the Yellow Lanterns. And he was like, it's not my fault. I was just trying to... Well, actually, no, it's Sinestro. So he's like, it's not my fault. They didn't listen to me because he's such a pompous ass. But anyway, Hal Jordan's in the cell next to them. He says, hey, make him a bunch of rings. He does. And after the event has happened and Sinestro is tired and weak, we get a gorgeous page turn. He makes the rings, they go out, they find all the fingers, and then we see all of them attacking Sinestro. Again, there's lots of instances in this book where we get one single page of a dramatic action. That's where most of the energy in this book is leading up to. And again, I really don't consider it a weakness in this book. Superhero books are designed to be melodramas. They're designed to be action-oriented. So right here, where Sinestro is talking to Hal Jordan and saying, look, you're going to do what I say because my ring basically controls your ring. If you don't like it, I don't care because, well, I'm better than you. We have, again, a nice sort of general four-panel sequence that is then interrupted by a big, almost whole-page spread. Again, in terms of the panel layouts, a lot of this is designed to encourage visual demonstrations of action. We have Hal Jordan punching Sinestro before we get another one of those little snarky interactions between the pair of them. So really, looking at this book, most of the play tends to deal with these action initiatives. And also, because it's Green Lantern, you are treated visually to some of the most bizarre space action sequences you'll probably ever read in a comic book, such as Hal Jordan flying into a gigantic yellow lantern and then melting and dissolving, followed immediately by a gorgeous cover page. And then if you turn the page a couple more, you get this incredible sequence of a gigantic yellow lantern on the planet Kuragar just exploding outward as Hal Jordan's essence is kind of just dissolved in pure concentrated yellow light. It's really cool and really fun. And that's the point. My friend TJ, who's part of a book club entirely dedicated to graphic novels that meets up regularly in my hometown, has a really good phrase he refers to as a popcorn book. And I'm going to use this phrase again and again and again, especially when it comes to Green Lantern books, but then also in superhero books. A lot of times, it's designed to be the kind of story you read while eating popcorn. It's like the movie Jaws. It's a great movie, but it's better with popcorn. This is a fun action story, and fans of Green Lanterns are going to enjoy themselves, and even if you've never read a Green Lantern book, you're going to just enjoy the ride of this book, because again, these panels are arranged to just have you follow sequence after sequence, amazing, powerful constructs being formed, shattered, the hero constantly doubting himself, and then kind of coming full figure again and finding a level of self-confidence. I guess then the question is does this book contribute much to the medium? I'm not sure if contribute is necessarily the right word, but this book definitely relies on a lot of the structures of the medium. Again, there's still plenty of play and experimentation with panel layouts, but there's also kind of a veteran understanding of how to arrange the panels on the page to create the particular desired aesthetic effect in the viewer. Again, this is a fun melodrama of space epics. And so the design is not so much to get into kind of the nuances inherent of each of these characters' personal idiosyncrasies, The point is to reinforce or just remind the reader of the sense of possibility of the superhero. Green Lanterns are the space police. They go out and try to right the wrongs using the power of will to remind people or instill in people the notion that through willpower we can overcome evil and darkness. And so this book does that in spades, and it's an excellent start to hop into the Green Lantern universe. And honestly, after that, I'm really not sure if there's much more I can say, because that's the book in a nutshell. If you want more, go to your local comic book shop. Pick up a copy of it. It's definitely worth your time. And as soon as I get around to reviewing Volume 2, we're going to continue this fun, epic journey. We are going to go through every one of my Green Lantern books and my Orange Lantern books. Yeah, that's right, I said Orange Lantern. We're going to talk about Larfleeze. He's my favorite. We're going to talk about the Red Lanterns. We're even going to do, eventually, the Green Lantern, Green Arrow run of the 1970s, which inspired that Radioactive Man cover. My God, my sidekick is a junkie. It's going to be fun. But anyway, I hope this has inspired you to maybe pick up 1 or 2 Green Lantern books. I guarantee your local comic book shop, if they don't have any trades, they almost certainly have a couple of individual issues. Check them out. And hey, don't forget to check out your local public library, because they will also probably have a DC section filled with Green Lantern comic books. So yeah, I think that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed me just geeking out about Green Lantern and this universe. I hope you also appreciated that this video was pretty short. As always, please like, share, and subscribe, all that jazz. It helps me out, it helps the channel out, and it keeps me making these videos for you. I hope you're watching, I hope you're enjoying, or I hope you're at least moderately enjoying me goof up my words and being a total dork. But whatever. Thank you for watching. I tremendously appreciate it. Go read some comics.